Okay. Um, I recently updated my operating system for my computer, my Macintosh computer, to the latest version, and now the driver for this camera, the software for the camera, no longer is compatible. So I have no idea if the frame is quite right. I don't really have a way of making sure that it is, so it's going to be what it is. Hopefully, it doesn't detract too much from the video. I wanted to talk about. I just watched a video on my Facebook video feed of Trevor Noah, the comedian that hosts The Daily Show, that used to be hosted by Jon Stewart. And I watched this video, and it was basically about racism, and that he prefers the racism of apartheid in South Africa to, in some ways, he prefers it to the racism of the United States, and that he says the racism of apartheid was in your face. There was no if, ands, or buts about it. It was very direct, and in the racism in the United States is very sort of stab you in the back, smile to your face kind of. I think that's the gist of kind of what he was describing. And I just wanted to maybe want to say something about my experience of so-called racism. And I guess I understand that I'm going to be a lot of people listening to me are just going to say, "You're a white person. How can you know anything about racism?" Which is hilarious because, like, people are very racist against white people. uh, so, I guess where I would start is by retracting the statement that I just said, that people are very racist towards white people. And I would start by saying I think very few people are racist, period. Like I think it takes a real moron to act in today's day and age to be an actual racist, to actually think that a race is superior, or that a person is superior or inferior because of their skin color is absolutely absurd. Uh, I don't think almost anybody thinks this. Even like the people that would claim to think this don't actually think this. So uh, I don't know. I think that this is really stupid, and it's insane to me how prevalent this idea is. Now, if you want to talk about uh, being culturist, I think that is extremely common, and I would argue that basically everyone does this. Period. Everyone. How can you not? Like, if you exist in the world, you you come from a certain culture, and you're going to go out and you're going to find that there are lots of other cultures, and they all have different values, and they all have different behaviors. And I would say that, in my experience, it seems the vast majority of values are the same between all cultures, but they all have their differences, and some of these differences are contentious. Um, and some of the differences just need to be understood, like that when you actually get into, when you actually try to understand another culture and you really explore it in depth, I think often there are things that you may have been wary about or unsure about going in to your educational process, where when you actually learn what the truth is, then you can see you have a different perspective on the other side. So, added video. I just wanted to add something to what I was saying. That it can be different when you learn and you understand the truth. Then your perspective changes. A personal example for me for this was on a road road trip across the country, I had bought like a binder of like 300 different CDs of different music artists, and I just put them like one after the other, so I got to listen to a ton of different music that I would never expose myself to in any other way. And one of the CDs, sometimes I would have people, artists that would come on that I knew pretty well, but I'd never really dived into their catalog, so I didn't really know much about them. So one of these artists was Eminem, and I started listening to a number of his albums at length. And when I was growing up, the perspective that I had and sort of was given about Eminem was that he was really edgy and you need to be careful around him, and that it's like he's not meant for young audiences. He's doing some bad things, and then when I actually, where I am today in my life now, and I'm listening to, or this was I guess about a year or so ago, and I'm listening to Eminem's album. I could really understand what he's actually doing, and his songs, many of his songs. I'm not saying across the board he's a saint by any means, but I remember listening to one album in particular, and I can't remember what the name of it was. But I'm listening to these songs, and these songs are targeted songs. They're intelligent. They're using the language that has meaning with his intended audience, and he's trying to do good things for the culture. And so this guy was, he was fighting to make good things happen, and he got a lot of crap for it. At least his reputation within the culture that I grew up in was a very negative one. And so then, after actually exposing myself to his art and his work, then I could really see what he's actually doing. And I don't know why other people interpreted this differently. I just don't. I think I understand the truth of what some of his music was doing. And I could see how if you get hung up on the foul language and don't try to really understand the heart of what he was after, that you might get hung up on that foul language and think that he's a bad guy for it. But you need to understand the heart of what he's trying to communicate. And communication's a tricky thing, and that's something I've come to know very well. And so in order to actually communicate things, you have to understand what's going to have meaning to the people that you're speaking to, it's a tricky thing. So that's an example for me of when I got to know the truth of a person that their culture had, or my understanding of them had been at a surface level, had been this one thing that with understanding and discovery, the reality, the truth of it was very different. So, yeah, just wanted to add that. Trevor Noah is I saw him performing when I was in London, and I thought he was spectacular. I thought he's got his accents down extremely well. I think that his accents maybe have become more lazy more recently. But when I saw him, they were just fantastic. More interruption. Just wanted to clarify what I was saying about the accents. The reason why I brought it up is because accents, in order to do a great accent, you have to pay really close attention to detail. And so, and another way of saying that is, in order to do a great accent, you have to pay respect to the accent of where it's coming. Accents are developed over the course of time. To have a very unique accent, it requires being really in a culture, whatever culture spawns that accent. So you can't really get the accent unless you really understand the sounds carefully, and that means you have taken time to really know the culture, at least through sound, and that matters. And so when if he has become lazier over time with his accents, it shows to me that he is not showing as much care for the people that he's talking about. So. And I thought his commentary and his comedy, it was smart. It was in good taste. It was poignant. it addressed issues that may be sensitive issues, but addressed it in an intelligent and careful, respectful way, or something like that. And I think when he took over the Daily Show, I was very excited for him to take over the Daily Show, because I thought we just got a really smart, bold person that a lot of people will be very receptive to. And I thought Jon Stewart was right on when he said that he thinks that he's sort of passing the baton. That I remember when Jon Stewart had an interview with somebody that somebody said, I think it might have been George Carlin. I think George Carlin. I think it was him that said that Jon Stewart was going to teach the world a lot, and I think Jon Stewart said something similar to Trevor Noah, that he was going to do a fantastic job with the show. And I think he actually got intimidated by the show, and I think his character changed. I think he sort of sold himself out. I think he felt like he couldn't be himself in order to really measure up to the legacy of Jon Stewart, who did I think, a fantastic job with the show. I don't agree with everything Jon Stewart says. I think sometimes he kind of, I don't know, pigeonholes himself or something. Like he feels like he needs to make fun of everything. So sometimes he finds he can be a little bit combative or whatever. But point is, I think Jon Stewart, by and large, did a fantastic job with the show, and I think he's a legend for very good reason. And I think Trevor Noah has turned the show into taken it in a. It's not as good as it once was. And it's a shame to me that the different people in positions like he is in are using it to say things like he is, that perpetuate racism,